What if the very trait you think makes you a great partner or, a great friend or employee, your relentless, selfless kindness is actually a toxic manipulation tactic, like something that's quietly destroying your relationships and your own happiness.
Yeah, that is a really heavy thought to start with.
Right, because usually we operate on this super simple math. You put goodness out into the world, you put other people's needs before your own, and, well, you get love and social harmony in return. But welcome to today's deep dive, because we are going to completely dismantle that assumption.
We really are. And it is a genuinely uncomfortable concept to confront, to be honest, because it completely flips the script on everything society teaches us about being a quote-unquote good person.
It really does.
And we aren't just talking about, basic dating etiquette today. We're looking at a profound psychological framework, one that explains exactly why people suppress their authentic selves just to appease others. And more importantly, how reclaiming your personal power can fundamentally alter the trajectory of your life, your career, and your most intimate relationships.
Yeah, and to guide us through this, we are unpacking Dr. Robert A. Glover's controversial but honestly highly influential book, No More Mr. Nice Guy.
Absolutely.
He essentially takes a sledgehammer to the idea that being relentlessly accommodating is some kind of virtue. So, okay, let's unpack this.
Let's do it.
Before we figure out the solution, we really need to clearly identify the behavior. What exactly makes someone a nice guy in the context of Glover's work? Because on the surface, these sound like the exact people we all want in our lives.
On the surface, absolutely.
Yeah.
The classic archetype involves individuals who will do almost anything to avoid conflict.
Right.
They're the ultimate yes men. They'll let their partners manage the household or the entire relationship dynamic. They absolutely refuse to rock the boat at work.
So they're just constantly going with the flow.
Exactly. And they chronically suppress their own feelings or opinions if they think expressing them might cause even a little bit of friction. They really pride themselves on being endlessly dependable and entirely low maintenance.
Right. It's that person who says, whatever you want to do is fine with me for the 50th time in a row. It sounds supportive. It does. But Glover's central thesis is that these guys aren't actually nice.
Wait, really?
Yeah, it's a complete misnomer. The nice guy persona is very often just a mask.
Wow.
And underneath that mask is a foundation of dishonesty, manipulation, and highly passive-aggressive behavior. They give constantly, but they only give because there is a hidden string attached.
Okay.
They are desperately craving appreciation or validation or a very specific type of reciprocation, even if they never actually vocalize it.
So it's essentially a Trojan horse of kindness.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah, it looks like this beautiful, selfless gift rolling into your life. Look at how easygoing and helpful I am. But hidden inside the horse is this secret, demanding agenda.
That is exactly what it is.
But if their ultimate goal is just to be loved and accepted by the people around them, why employ such a manipulative strategy? Are they walking around knowing they're manipulating people? No, and that's exactly what makes this so insidious for the person experiencing it. This isn't some malicious master plan hatched in a villain's lair.
Right, they aren't twirling their mustaches.
No, not at all. It is a deeply ingrained, completely unconscious survival tactic. And the goal here isn't to suddenly realize this and become a jerk who kicks puppies.
Thank goodness.
Right. Glover emphasizes that the cure is becoming what he calls integrated.
Integrated, okay.
Yeah, an integrated person accepts their imperfections, they set firm boundaries, and most importantly, they drop the hidden agenda. When they do something kind, it's a genuine gift. It's not, a down payment on future affection.
Okay, so if this isn't a conscious, calculated plan, then this Trojan horse strategy has to stem from somewhere incredibly deep.
It does.
Why does the brain wire itself to believe that hyper-accommodation is the only way to survive?
Well, to understand the mechanism behind it, we really have to look at childhood vulnerability. The root of this entire syndrome is the fundamental human fear of abandonment.
Which we all have.
Exactly. When we are young, we are entirely dependent on our caregivers to survive. And we also view the world through a completely egocentric lens.
Meaning everything is about us.
Right. So if something happens, a child's brain naturally assumes, I am the cause of this.
But wait, every toddler throws tantrums, right? If a parent is, 5 minutes late with lunch or loses their temper after a really long day at work, does that really scar a kid with lifelong trauma?
That's a very fair point.
Because it seems a bit extreme to say a normal childhood bump creates a lifelong manipulative coping mechanism.
Right. But we aren't talking about a parent just being 5 minutes late with the sandwich once or twice. We are talking about chronic patterns.
Ah, okay.
Patterns where a child's natural needs or emotional expressions are consistently met with neglect, shaming, or anger.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, when a child routinely feels that expressing a need leads to a dangerous or negative outcome, their brain synthesizes a very specific survival rule. They develop what Glover calls toxic shame.
Toxic shame. How is that different from like regular guilt?
Well, guilt is the feeling of, I did something bad.
Okay.
Toxic shame is the deep-seated, paralyzing belief of, I am bad.
Oh, man. That's heavy.
It is. It's the conviction that your fundamental nature, your needs, and your flaws are literally dangerous and will cause people to abandon you. So, to survive, the child's brain executes this brilliant, albeit tragic, defensive maneuver.
It hides the flaws.
Exactly. The child becomes a chameleon. They're constantly reading the room and shifting their personality to become exactly what they think their parents, teachers, or peers want them to be.
Which, I mean, makes total sense as a childhood defense mechanism.
Completely.
But there is a massive logical flaw when you carry that into adulthood.
Oh, absolutely.
If you spend your entire life hiding who you really are and pretending you don't actually have any needs, how do you ever get what you want out of life?
You don't. You really don't. You just end up deeply, deeply frustrated. And this brings us to the great illusion of the nice guy.
Okay, what's that?
The illusion of being low maintenance.
Mm-hmm.
They project this image that they don't need anything because, like we said, childhood taught them that having needs is a liability.
Right.
But the mechanical reality is that they're human. They have the exact same physical, emotional, and psychological needs as everyone else.
Shocker.
Right. In fact, because of that toxic shame, they are often extremely needy.
Mm.
They just try to get those needs met through indirect, controlling means, rather than having the courage to just ask directly.
Which creates that fascinating dynamic the book calls the covert contract.
Yes, the covert contract. This is basically the invisible engine driving the nice guy's life. It's this unspoken, entirely one-sided agreement that goes something like this. If I do X for you, you must do Y for me.
But I'm not going to tell you about it.
Exactly. But we're going to pretend this contract doesn't exist, and I am never going to tell you the terms.
It's exactly like going to a restaurant with a group of friends and refusing to order any food because you want to seem super easygoing and accommodating to the group's budget.
Oh, that's a great analogy.
And then you're just sitting there, quietly seething with anger when the waiter doesn't magically bring you a burger.
Yes.
Like you didn't ask for it, you explicitly said you didn't want anything, but you're absolutely furious they didn't read your mind and reward your sacrifice.
That restaurant scenario perfectly illustrates the mechanics of the behavior.
Mm.
And that seething anger you just mentioned, that is exactly where the passive-aggressive behavior leaks out.
Ah.
The nice guy won't yell at you, but they will, slam the car door or give you the silent treatment for 3 days or conveniently forget to do a chore you asked for.
They're punishing you.
Exactly. They're punishing you for breaking a contract you never even signed.
Wow. So how does someone break this cycle? Because if your brain has spent 20 or 30 years operating on covert contracts, how do you unwire that?
Well, the primary actionable advice is to completely short-circuit the need for external validation.
Okay.
You have to stop asking, how can I make them happy? And start asking, what do I want?
That sounds simple, but I bet it's incredibly hard for them.
Oh, it's terrifying for them.
Yeah.
Glover strongly recommends aggressive self-care that has nothing to do with anyone else. Taking deliberate alone time, like going on a solo retreat where nobody knows you and you have literally no one to perform for.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Hitting the gym, prioritizing your sleep, engaging in hobbies that you enjoy purely for yourself.
But for someone trapped in this chameleon mindset, taking a solo vacation or spending 3 hours a week at the gym just for themselves probably feels incredibly selfish. I mean, it probably triggers that exact toxic shame we just talked about.
It triggers it massively. They will experience almost a psychological withdrawal when they first start prioritizing themselves.
Really?
Yeah. But the profound irony here is that when you prioritize your own needs, everyone around you actually breathes a sigh of relief.
Because the hidden agenda is gone.
Precisely. The covert contract vanishes.
Yeah.
You are no longer secretly demanding that your partner or your friends manage your emotional state.
Right.
But pushing through that initial discomfort and taking ownership of your needs requires a specific type of inner resilience. Glover refers to this as reclaiming your personal power.
Personal power. I mean, that's one of those buzzwords that sounds great on a motivational poster, but what are the actual mechanics of it? What does it look like in practice?
In this framework, personal power is the ability to face challenges, problems, and adversity head-on. It is absolutely not about being fearless.
Okay.
It's about experiencing the fear, acknowledging it, and refusing to let it dictate your behavior.
Yeah.
And to do this, you have to learn to differentiate between two types of fear:
Which are?
healthy fear and memory fear.
Okay, break that down for me.
Healthy fear is a biological warning system. It's the fear you feel when a bear is charging at you in the woods, or, a car swerves into your lane.
Right, it requires immediate action.
Exactly. Evasive action. Memory fear, on the other hand, is an echo. It's that childhood toxic shame firing off in your adult brain. When you walk into your boss's office to ask for a raise, or you tell your partner you want to spend Saturday by yourself, your brain artificially spikes your adrenaline as if a bear is charging.
Wow.
It confuses setting a healthy boundary with the childhood threat of total abandonment.
That is wild.
So personal power is the ability to recognize that memory fear, say to yourself, I am not actually in danger, and hold your ground.
That makes a lot of sense. And Glover makes a pretty bold historical argument regarding this loss of personal power, specifically focusing on men and masculinity, right?
He does, yeah. Now, we should be clear that he puts forward a specific historical hypothesis here.
Right, this is his specific view.
Exactly. He argues that post-WWII social and cultural shifts led to generations of men becoming increasingly passive. In his view, men became disconnected from other men and over-indexed on seeking the approval of women, whether that was mothers, teachers, or romantic partners. Glover argues that society began actively encouraging men to suppress what were traditionally considered negative male traits like aggression, dominance, or physical roughness.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. Because suppressing negative traits like aggression and brutality sounds like a clear win for society. I mean, is Glover suggesting that men need to revert to being aggressive or brutal to reclaim this personal power?
It's a crucial distinction to make. No, he is not advocating for brutality or returning to some toxic form of dominance.
Okay, good.
His argument is based on the mechanics of emotional suppression. You cannot selectively numb a personality.
What do you mean?
Well, when these men suppress their fundamental nature broadly, just to ensure they never offended anyone, they inadvertently repress their positive masculine traits alongside the negative ones.
Ah, so when you numb the bad, you numb the good.
Exactly. In their effort to never be seen as aggressive, they lost their drive. In their effort to never be dominant, they lost their leadership and creativity.
Wow.
In their effort to never be inappropriate, they lost their sexual assertiveness and passion. They just became flat.
So what's his solution then?
The solution he proposes isn't to become a bully, it's integration. He advocates for reconnecting with other men through structured, competitive, or collaborative environments.
Like what?
Playing sports, joining a poker game, or doing challenging volunteer work.
Why those specific activities? And what does a poker game do to cure toxic shame?
It creates a safe, low-stakes environment to practice boundaries and healthy conflict. In a sport or a game, you are competing.
Right.
You are trying to win, which means someone else has to lose. For a nice guy, asserting dominance even in a friendly game triggers memory fear. They worry their friends will hate them if they win.
Oh, because they're not being perfectly accommodating.
Exactly. Practicing these activities rewires the brain. It teaches them that they can be powerful, they can compete, they can assert themselves, and the world doesn't end.
Their friends still like them.
Exactly. This also includes building physical strength and finding grounded male role models to observe what responsible, non-toxic assertiveness actually looks like.
It's essentially exposure therapy for having a personality.
That's a great way to put it.
You stop being a hollow shell trying to blend into the wallpaper, and you start occupying actual space in the world. But if someone successfully does this, if they integrate these traits, figure out what they want, and start setting boundaries, the ultimate testing ground for this new identity is going to be their romantic relationship.
Oh, without a doubt. Intimacy is where we are most vulnerable, which means it's where toxic shame flares up the hardest.
Makes sense.
The reality check Glover offers here is blunt. You will never find a perfect partner, and your relationship will never be perfectly smooth. The integrated person accepts that, but the nice guy tries to cheat the system.
How so?
One of the first patterns they have to break is the compulsion to choose fixer-upper partners.
Oh, the classic trap. Finding someone with chronic money troubles or a history of deeply chaotic relationships or severe emotional struggles so you can swoop in and play the savior.
Exactly. And why do you think they play the savior?
To be needed?
Yes, because of the mechanics of the covert contract.
Yeah.
If you find someone who is broken and heavily dependent on you to survive, they can't abandon you.
Wow. So it's not actually about helping the person at all. It's about creating a power imbalance so you feel safe from rejection.
Exactly. It is a highly manipulative way to ensure security. Glover strongly advises stepping away from those dynamics. He suggests finding a partner who already takes responsibility for their own life.
Which means giving up that control.
Yes. He also recommends consciously delaying physical intimacy to genuinely learn about the partner's character first, rather than using sex as a tool to fast-track a false sense of closeness.
Which naturally brings us to the bedroom. If this chameleon behavior infects how you order food at a restaurant or who you date, it must be absolutely catastrophic when you introduce the extreme vulnerability of physical intimacy.
It is the ultimate amplifier. Sex is where the fear of abandonment and the dysfunctional coping mechanisms get put on a megaphone.
Jeez.
Nice set. Guys carry immense anxiety into the bedroom. Because they operate on external validation, they feel they have to perform flawlessly to, quote-unquote, earn their partner's love.
Right.
Or, conversely, their toxic shame convinces them that their own sexual desires are inherently dirty or offensive. This manifests across a wide spectrum. It can cause severe sexual dysfunction, complete repression of intimacy, or it can fracture outward into hidden compulsions.
Like what?
We are talking about heavy reliance on intense pornography, cybersex, or affairs.
They seek out virtual or hidden avenues because there is literally no risk of a real person rejecting them.
Exactly.
So how do you fix a physiological and psychological block that is so deeply shrouded in shame?
Well, you have to bring the shame into light. That is the non-negotiable first step. Glover insists that you must vocalize these hidden things. You have to discuss your sexual history, your actual desires, and your fears with your partner. And you have to do it without instantly repressing the feelings of guilt that will inevitably bubble up. You just sit with the discomfort.
And the book gets very specific about taking individual physical responsibility too, specifically recommending a practice of healthy masturbation.
Yes, and it defines healthy masturbation. Strictly engaging in it without the use of pornography, external materials, or even intense fantasy.
This makes so much sense mechanically. It's kind of like if you use extreme, hyper-stimulating multi-tab pornography to understand your sexuality. It's the equivalent of trying to learn how to drive on a chaotic, high-speed Formula One racetrack before you even know how the steering wheel works in an empty parking lot.
That is the perfect visualization.
You really have to understand your own baseline physical responses first.
Exactly. You have to learn the actual mechanics of your own body in silence, so that you can take full responsibility for your own pleasure.
All right.
If your brain is wired to rely on intense, escalating external distractions just to feel anything, you will never be able to connect authentically with the quiet reality of a real human partner. True intimacy requires two sovereign individuals who know what they want and take responsibility for their own needs.
It totally collapses when both people are desperately trying to mind read and please each other while completely ignoring themselves.
Precisely. As Glover bluntly states, bad sex is not better than no sex.
Wow. And once an individual starts understanding their own baseline and integrating their personality, Glover uses this really striking metaphor for how they should approach intimacy in life. The bull moose approach.
Yes, the bull moose. It is the absolute antithesis of the chameleon.
Okay, explain that.
Glover encourages men to be sexually proud, fiercely authentic, and entirely unapologetic about their nature. But let's clarify how that actually works, because it isn't about bulldozing your partner or being selfish in bed.
Right.
A bull moose doesn't apologize for its size or its presence. It simply exists in its power.
I love that.
When a human translates this, it means stepping into a room or a relationship and saying, this is who I am, these are my desires, and I'm comfortable with them.
That's powerful.
It is. That quiet, unapologetic authenticity is incredibly attractive because it removes the burden from the partner. The partner no longer has to manage your insecurities or guess your hidden agenda. It's the ultimate rejection of toxic shame.
It is a complete 180. I mean, we have covered a massive amount of psychological ground today. We started by defining this nice guy syndrome not as actual genuine kindness, but as a protective shell of manipulation driven by childhood toxic shame.
Right. We looked at the mechanics of how that shame forces people into covert contracts, secretly expecting the world to read their minds and reward them for hiding their true selves.
Yeah, and we explored the framework for breaking out of that loop, identifying memory fear, reclaiming personal power, and intentionally engaging in environments that test your boundaries safely.
And finally, we saw how dropping that chameleon mask is really the only path to authentic intimacy, where you clearly demand what you want, you take full responsibility for your own physical and emotional needs, and you stop using broken people as a shield against rejection.
Absolutely.
But if we bring all of this abstract psychology right to your doorstep as the listener, it's vital to recognize that the core of this entire syndrome boils down to one really simple emotion: fear.
Yeah, that really is the common denominator here.
It is the fear that stops you from walking into your boss's office and asking for what you're worth. It's the memory fear that stops you from leaving a draining relationship or moving to a new city or just charting the life you actually want to live. Being the perpetual nice guy is just an incredibly elaborate, exhausting shield against facing that fear.
Which leaves us with this final thought for you to mull over today. The source material emphasizes how much fear holds you back from getting what you want. But if you really sit with this, ask yourself, are you really afraid of failing? Or are you actually terrified of your own success? Because once you stop playing it safe, once you stop hiding behind the bulletproof excuse of being just a nice, accommodating person, you finally have to take full responsibility for the incredible life you could create. What happens when the covert contracts are gone, the mask is off, and you have absolutely no one left to blame for your unhappiness? When that Trojan horse of toxic kindness is burned down, you are left with just you. And that is a terrifying prospect. But it is also the only way to achieve total freedom. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning your assumptions, and we'll see you